So today I'm going to be changing the wheels on my Tesla, and I want to use this video as an opportunity to illustrate some of the particular details for changing Tesla tires. So let's get going. So with winter tires, you also need a spare set of rims. And the question is, what wheels do I go for? Now, in the Tesla Model 3 manual, we have specifications for what wheels you can actually fit to the Tesla Model 3. We've got 18-inch rims at the moment, and it will tell you what the width and the offset is. It will also tell you what the lug nut socket size shall be as well. So I went to one particular website and I reviewed the options there. This is wheelbasealloys.com, and it came up with a package based on the Model 3 that I chose as an input car, and that package includes Pirelli S3 tyres as well as BBS wheels. I've never heard of BBS, but apparently they've got a good name. However, there is a deviation between the offer and the specification. If we go up to the wheel size, it tells you that the width is HJ, and the Model 3 manual was 8.5 inches. So we've got a deviation, and I want to act out of an abundance of caution. I'm not very good at specifying these things or interpreting specifications. The manual makes it very clear that if your wheels are not approved, then your warranty could be voided. So I went to Tesla and I asked for a price for a winter tire package, and that's something they offer with their own OEM wheels. So questions of approved parts no longer comes into play. And the other thing which doesn't come into question is a question of modifications for insurance purposes. They gave me a quote of £1,800, including VAT, for the Pirelli S3 tyres. So it's a newer tyre than what's been offered here. So let's go and check that out. So here's one example of a wheel that we're going to be fitting. This is the Pirelli S3. These are OEM wheels. If you have a look at the tread, you'll see that this has a extra grooves in between all of the into the blocks, and it's a softer rubber compound. So this provides a lot more grip on the on icy or snowy roads. So first thing to do is to take the aero covers off here. These are quite brittle, and I've taken this one off before. Just pull it out like so on each section. Some of them are more stubborn than others to remove. There we go. So you can see how it's held on. It's held on to each of these spokes. So you couldn't fit this onto an aftermarket wheel. They reckon these improve your range by about 15 miles. This here is my my old trolley jack for my Volkswagen Golf. Although it almost just about fits underneath, this is not the recommended trolley jack to use. So this is a new trolley jack I purchased. It's much heavier. This is a low profile trolley jack. I'm going to illustrate why we're going to use this in a moment. This weighs about 30 kilos. Okay, so underneath here we've got jacking points here. Whilst you can put a jack right on this point, you need to be mindful that if you go a bit further beyond, you've got the battery. You definitely don't want to be crushing the battery with your jack. And this here is plastic trim. So what we have are these jacking pads. You can buy them on Amazon. They're fairly cheap accessories. You can buy a pack of 4 for about 20 quid. So now I've got a rubber point on which to load my jack. I need to check something. I've got a feeling that these lug nuts might be in inches. That could be a problem. So this is the closest socket size which I've got. It's 22 millimeters. The actual socket size I need is 21 millimeters, and unfortunately my socket set does not have a 21 millimeter lug nut with a half-inch square on the back, which is very annoying. So I went into Inverurie and I got myself a new socket. This is 21 millimeters. It fits nicely and it's a half-inch drive. So now I can get these wheel nuts off. They're quite a bit bigger than my Golf wheel nuts. Those were about 19 millimeters. Let's get this done. All right. So these are, this has got a plastic shroud and that's designed to protect the alloy wheels. And this wheel nut, this socket cost me about 13 quid. Auto Parts of Inverurie to go to for that. And it's a Draper Expert brand. These are coming off quite nicely. They're not seized in any way, which is very good. And this is a Sealy breaker bar. It's quite a cheap one. Okay, so then I jack this car up the rest of the way. Right, that'll do. So then we'll get the rest of the wheel off. So my old Golf had wheel bolts rather than wheel nuts, so same principle though. One more wheel nut. Right, let's get this wheel off. So, on with the new wheel. Nice and easy. I have to say, having the thread on the hub itself just makes things easier for me. With the old one, I had to sort of mount it onto the profile of the hub, and it was quite a precarious matter. No, wrong way round. There we go. And then the rest should just go on quite easily. So these wheel nuts, they seem to be very specific to the Tesla size. They've got a chamfered edge which fits around the alloy wheel. You have to be very specific, I think, with your wheel nuts. You can't just simply go for a particular thread size and pitch. I'm not an expert on these things. I'm just learning. Right, that's all the wheel nuts on. So we'll just lower this down so it touches the ground. So now it's time for my torque wrench. Tang tools, I've had this for ages. Now on my Golf it was 120 Newton meters. On this one it's 175, so we're just going to bring the tightness up to the right level. 175, right. There we go. And let's get this done. There we go. Quite a lot more torque with this one. Okay, then once I've tightened them all up, I just go around them once more. Just check that that they're all tight. This torque wrench is rated to 210 Newton meters. Right, so that's it. That's one wheel, just 3 more to go. So now I've taken both rear tyres off, and the thing to note is that the rear tyres have to go on the front of the car in the springtime. Tesla recommends that tyres are rotated every 6,500 miles. So what I've done is I've put some masking tape on these tyres to remind me in the springtime that these need to go on the front axles. Okay, so this is the last wheel mounted, and now I'm just tightening up the wheel nuts. I didn't want to repeat the process for the sake of YouTube. It's the same process for each wheel, but one thing to note is that the weight of the vehicle is evenly distributed between the front and rear axles. So on the Golf, most of the weight was on the front axles, so it was quite a bit heavier to lift just the front axle off the ground. On this one, it's a roughly equal load for the trolley jack. Okay, so that's that. Get my torque wrench. And we lower it onto the ground a little bit. That'll do. I've been told not to rest the wheel on the ground completely. Apparently when you apply torque on the torque wrench, it does create stress on the hub and the motor. So that's not my word, that's somebody else's word. I'm not an expert on the matter. Okay, so that is all the wheels fully installed. I'm now going to take the summer wheels, put them on my shed, and then we will go on to the next stage. This is the bit I dislike the most. I've got a not very strong back, so manual handling is definitely something I want to be careful about. Right, here we go. That's that. This is my winter wheel rack in my shed. And it sits at the end of my shed, right underneath my Norwegian snow shovel. Okay, so here's my sack truck. The trolley jack is quite heavy, so that's what I use. And I do not recommend this sack truck. It doesn't have proper bearings. It's just steel on steel friction. It's quite a cheap truck. Oh dear, it's quite heavy. So printed on the side of the passenger's side door, we've got a sticker which tells us what tyre pressure we should have when the tyre is cold. And it says 42 psi, so that's what we're going to check on the winter tyres right now. So I've had this tyre pump for about 8 years now. I've topped up the pressure on the summer tyres once. The pressure came down to about 38 psi, and that's when the low tyre pressure warning light comes on. That is just a function of low temperatures. So we had 36.5 psi when I fitted these, so I'm just going to bring them up to 42 psi. Okay, so I brought it up to 42.5 psi. My experience is that the air does get warmed up in the tyre when you do pressurize it, and then the temperature just falls back a little bit. So 3 more tyres to go. Okay, so that is the last tyre pressurized, and I'll just show you what tyre pump I've got. This is a Ring Automotive tyre pump. I've had it for 8 years and it does the job perfectly adequately. It's got a light, don't know if it's particularly bright, but I've never had to use it in anger. So yep, definitely recommended this one. So we'll go inside to the car and we're going to go for a test drive now. All right, so we're going to go on a test drive. Amongst other things, I want to just simply check that the wheels stay on. So that's a full lock steer, so there's no fouling going on, which is a good thing. The other thing I want to do is check that the tyre pressure monitoring systems are working fine. So this is something I do whenever I change my wheels. I just go for a drive, and if there's anything untoward, then we know all about it. So it takes a little longer for the tyre pressure monitoring sensors to come online. What I can see is that the pressure indicated is between 40 and 41 psi, and that tells me that my tyre pump doesn't have an equally calibrated gauge. So what I'll do is that I'll pump up the pressures to 43.5 psi, and that should hopefully bring us up to 42 psi indicated on the screen. But so far, as is usual with tyre wheel changes, there is no particular drama here. I tend to do a country drive at relatively slow speeds, and then I do a relatively brief fast drive. So after that test drive, the last thing I do is just check that the wheel nuts are properly torqued on. So that's one wheel, 3 wheels to go. So last job of all is to put the aero wheel covers back on. So we just align the hole for the valve, push in, and it should just click in like that. Nice and easy. 3 more wheels to do. They are sharp. They do have sharp edges, so I wear these cut-proof gloves. Yeah, these are a brand called Sight gloves. You can find them on Screwfix. So this is my tyre change complete. Now, since we're talking about tyres, I want to talk about punctures. When it comes to the Tesla, you don't get a spare wheel. You also don't get a puncture repair kit. People who suffer from punctures with Tesla have got 2 choices. They can either phone up Tesla roadside assistance. There is some puncture repair coverage involved, but there are limitations. I think you have to be within 50 miles of a service centre. And given that I'm about 35 miles away from a service centre, I'm right on the edge of the Aberdeen service centre range. Outside of that area, in the Highlands, for example, you're going to have other options. Some people might want to consider the AA or the RAC. What I've done is I've got my own puncture repair kit. Now, the summer tyres have got what are known as acoustic foam liners, and that means that the gunk that you get with puncture repair kits, which you inject into the tyre, they don't work so well. Instead, what I've got is a plug kit, and you get these little plugs, and what you do is you get some pliers, you pull out the nail or screw which has caused the puncture in the first place, and you insert one of these using a special tool which looks a bit like this. I think having the ability to repair your own punctures, rare as they are, I've only suffered one puncture in my 20 years of driving, and it wasn't even on my car. It's always good to have some backup. So the next stage of this video is to actually wait for some snow. So one day after I've fitted my winter tyres, we've got snow again. It's not very much, it's about 1 or 2 centimetres of snow, but it's a perfect opportunity to test my winter tyres. And before I defrost my car, I want to show a couple of things. So if I open the door, assuming I can open the door, yes I can, the window drops, and if we've got frozen rain, I'm just wondering whether the frozen rain would be a problem here. So if I open the boot, oh, that's frozen. Okay. So let's unfreeze it. Right, let's try and unfreeze it now. There we go. Here we've got a bit of a concern. When this snow starts to melt, that will all slide into your boot. So it's always a good idea in marginal conditions to clear all of this away before you open the boot. I will learn to put this in my passenger compartment so I've got access to it. Okay, so my car is now defrosted. And the thing to note about defrosting a car is that you don't have to spend too much effort defrosting it. You can do it from the comfort of your own home inside, and it will just warm up the car enough. I've lost about 1% battery doing it, and as you can see, there's no problem getting up my driveway. Last Saturday there was, so let's just do a quick drive along here. No problem at all. Brake test. Okay, slows down no problem, and we've got compacted snow here turning to ice, so we'll just go for a little quick drive. So here we've got a nice country road, so doing 47 miles an hour. Take the foot off the accelerator, apply the brakes. No problem at all. No problem at all. And then accelerate. Again, it doesn't feel like there's any drama whatsoever with driving on this kind of road where, you know, this is compacted snow. I'd have major troubles driving on this with summer tyres, and yet here there's just no drama, but you still have to drive to the conditions. You know, we've got corners, blind corners coming up, and you have to anticipate these things. It's getting even more compacted, this ice. Let's see how well we do around this corner. I've got a feeling no trouble at all. And again, no drama at all. Sometimes you get a little bit of, yeah, this is about as fast as I can accelerate, which is fine. It's no problem. So temperature is just above freezing point. And you know, I'm doing 30 to 40 miles an hour on this road. So what typically happens in Aberdeenshire when you get snow like this is that you get widespread reports of really slow driving going on. And what that tells me is that winter tyres are not normal to have in this part of the world in these conditions. The advice from the police is always drive according to the conditions. However, the first piece of advice is never put winter tyres on your car. If you go to Norway, it is the law that between the end of October and the beginning of April, you must have winter tyres on your car. These are not studded tyres, and studless tyres are typically studless tyres are typically the more popular option in Norway, and indeed studded tyres in Norway are banned in certain municipalities. So here, I think this demonstrates the value of investing in winter tyres. It can save you an insurance claim, amongst other things, and it reduces the wear on your own tyres. So these are all things to be mindful of. So one of the features of driving in the snow is making sure you've actually got sufficient clearance. The clearance on a Tesla Model 3 is 14 centimeters according to the specifications, and that's quite low, but it's, if you compare that to my Volkswagen Golf, the official clearance was 14.2 centimeters. So you need to be mindful in deeper snow, especially when you've got rutted ground like this, which is unploughed. This is no problem at all. But as you can see, now I'm just driving quite happily at 45 miles an hour. You don't have to go crazy on this kind of road at the regular speeds. I think that would be inappropriate. So one other thing to talk about is the windscreen. There are different modes of directing air onto the windscreen. One is called defogging mode, and you press it once and it goes into defogging mode, and that just directs conditioned air onto the windscreen. The other one is defrosting mode, and that has an extra bank of heaters which will direct air onto the windscreen to get it warmed up more quickly, and that will enable you to defrost your car much more quickly when you're wanting to head out in the morning time. I think that's a really good feature. If in a regular diesel car or petrol car, you have to wait for the engine to warm up before you're actually got sufficient heat to actually defrost your car. Now the Ford cars have got built-in resistive elements ingrained into the windows, and that's fantastic. They've had that for the last 23 years, I think. And I sometimes wonder why other cars haven't, why other manufacturers haven't followed suit, considering the patent's probably expired by now. But Tesla doesn't do that. It just simply directs warm air immediately to your windscreen. So I started at 69%. I've now dropped to 4%, and I've done nearly 7 miles of driving. So there is there is a lot of heat, a lot of energy which goes into just simply warming up the car. The cabin needs to be warmed up. The battery is also needing to be warmed up. If you start this car completely cold and drive off, you can drive off, no problem. But what you will find is that as soon as you take your foot off the accelerator, you don't get any regenerative braking because your battery's still too cold. It does warm up the battery. And what that tells me is that you should always get your car pre-conditioned before you actually head off. I did this with this vehicle 5 minutes before I got into the car, and that was very good. So now the efficiency is down to is coming down to 360 watt-hours per mile now, and yeah, the more you drive it, the better the efficiency of the vehicle, simply because there's so much energy spent as heat just warming up the cabin and the battery. So I hope this video has shown you that having winter tyres on in Scotland is a really good idea. It just turns every single journey into something which is undramatic. The biggest problem in Scotland in the winter time is actually the car in front of you. It's not your own car. When you've got winter tyres, you're fine. I'm going to be doing, I'm hoping to do a couple of drives this winter. Maybe in a week's time I want to do a hill walking trip. So I want to do a range test. I'm thinking, if the weather's okay, going out to Craigmeggy or someplace like that to do a nice winter hill walking trip. It'll be good to see how the winter tyres perform. Towards Christmas, I'm hoping to do another long distance drive as well. So stay tuned for that. So If you have been, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I will talk to you again very soon.